Today we're very happy to welcome the President into Lusaka and to also congratulate him for winning the elections. And we're very proud that he's come to make us proud, because for a long time we've never had a Ghanaian president coming here for a long time.
First Lady. Don't stop clapping. Let us show the President that we are happy to have him here.
In fact, words cannot describe how elated and honored we all are to have you in our midst. Much as your presence in this hall tonight is a hallmark and indeed an important milestone in Ghana-Zambia relations, it also symbolizes your commitment to the well-being of Ghanaians in the diaspora. Being the first president in the Fourth Republic of Ghana to visit the Republic of Zambia, you have, with this gesture, fulfilled what your immediate predecessors had promised, but were for some reason or another unable to accomplish. As you begin this historic endeavor, Mr. President, we already feel a great sense of optimism that your activities in this country come the next few days would bring about the further strengthening of the already cordial relations between Ghana and Zambia.
First of all, thank you so much. First of all, for coming to meet me at the airport and then coming out in such numbers to say hello to my wife and the delegation and I appreciate this very much. It's not easy. The day is fast spent, but you'll find it possible to come and meet with you. I'm very grateful. And let me also bring you greetings from Accra. I left there this morning after attending the festival, the Eid festival at Black Star Square. As you know, today is Salah Day, so I don't know whether there are any here, but if there are one or two Muslims here, Barka da Salah. In about a week's time, in fact, a week on Friday, will be exactly 6 months since I raised my hand to take the oath as President of the Republic. So it's been an eventful 6 months. All kinds of things have been taking place. Invisible forces, Delta forces. Those have occurred. And also, good things have happened. The Asempa budget was passed in March, which has begun to show the direction in which we want to take the economy. As you know, the biggest single problem we have at home is how to revive our economy. Despite finding oil 10 years ago in Kufuor's time, the expectations that we had as a people that it would lead to really concrete transformations in our life and in our economy have so far not been met. And on the contrary, in the last few years, we've seen a systematic decline in the performance of our economy. So the biggest single issue before our people, before all of us, is what we need to do to raise our economy again. Because it is in doing that that will be able to tackle the big and biggest problem in our country, the lack of jobs for the young people of Ghana. Everywhere you go, town, village, town, city, it is the stark reality that the vast majority of our youth are not in gainful employment. That is an extremely dangerous development for our country. And there is a need urgently to do something about it. We can do something about it if our economy grows and prospers, because that is how we'll be able to get more enterprises, new jobs, new openings. So that's our focus. What do we need to do to get the economy going? The analysis that we made is that the stronger the private sector of Ghana can be, the stronger we can make our enterprises, the more likely it is that we can accelerate the growth of our economy. And so the first measures we have taken have been measures to stimulate private sector activity in Ghana. The budget that was passed at the end of March did three main things. First of all, it undertook some significant tax reforms. We cut 1 billion cedis out of the public revenue in order to stimulate the activities of our private sector. The monies that would come to government, we wanted to stay with our enterprises to give them the opportunity to invest and grow. So a whole lot of taxes were removed from operation. The second was to prepare a big stimulus package for distressed industries in the country. So there's $100 million worth of money to support distressed enterprises, especially in the manufacturing and industrial sector. Thirdly, another large sum of money has been found for the revival of our agriculture. Unfortunately, our country, which has a lot of arable land, has water, has everything, and a hard-working population, has also seen systematically a decline in our agriculture. I don't know whether you know it here, but we have been importing plantain from Côte d'Ivoire. We're importing tomatoes from Burkina Faso. Those are not statistics that we as Ghanaians should be happy about. We should be able to grow our own plantain. I think you agree with me there. We should be capable of growing our own plantain. We should be capable of growing our own food, but we have not been doing so. So we've initiated a program we call Planting for Food and Jobs. What is it? The statistics have it that there are about 5 million farmers in the country. This year, which is a pilot year for the program, we've identified 200,000 farmers across the 10 regions of the country. And we're supporting these 200,000 farmers with improved seedlings, subsidized fertilizer, and available extension officers in order to enhance production in about 5 basic staples: maize, cassava, sorghum, soya beans are the main focus of the program for Planting for Food and Jobs. We've cut fertilizer by some 50%, the price. We're introducing improved seedlings into the scene. And most importantly of all, we're now aligning extension officers for agriculture. Can you believe, in the last 5 years, colleges of agriculture have not been able to produce one graduate to be employed in the public sector? There are over 3,000 young Ghanaian graduates of agriculture who are sitting at home twiddling their thumbs. The public sector cannot employ them. At the same time, they are badly needed by our farmers to assist them as to how to improve, modernize their techniques of farming and their techniques of harvesting food and cash crops. So one of the decisions, the most important decisions that we've taken, is to begin to employ these extension officers. 1,200 of them have been accommodated in this year's budget. The projection is that another 2,000 next year. We clear the arrears and make it now necessary that every year we'll be able to accommodate those who come out of the colleges of agriculture. This is an extremely important step if we are going to enhance productivity in our agriculture. So that's a major initiative that the government has taken. And the 200,000 pilot, as it were, scheme, the intention is that by the end of the 4 years, at least 2.5 million farmers will be in the program Planting for Food and Jobs. That is roughly 50% of the farming community of Ghana. If we succeed, and the indications are that we are going to succeed, because the deployment of the inputs has been effective, it's taking place in the south, it's taking place in the north now. You know that there are the rains come a month and a half later in the north than they do in the south. So they've just begun in the north, but the deployment has been completed. And the information that I have is that it has been substantially successful. If that is the case, God willing, this year we're going to have a bumper harvest in Ghana this year. These measures are being taken, and at the same time, by aligning government expenditures, capping the statutory funds that have to be dedicated, we are also reducing the deficit. We inherited a deficit of 9% GDP. We want at the end of this year to reduce it to 6.5, with a target of taking it to 3% the next year, so we can get our economy fully back in equilibrium. Once we are able to show the markets that we're serious about tackling the deficit, the confidence that we need to get back into our economy, into our currency, into interest rates, that will come. And that should be able to spur the development of our country. So that's the strategy. That is a strategy that we are employing to be able to revive our economy. And we believe insofar as already we're seeing signs. Bank of Ghana has begun to reduce its policy rate. Interest rates have started coming down already in the commercial banks. We believe that the strategy is going to pay off, and we're going to see that revival of the economy that all of us want to see. This is going along. It's going along in the real sectors of the economy, industry, and agriculture. But at the same time, because it's important that we take the whole population along with us as we develop our country, we're insisting that some basic elements of social justice in Ghana be met. I have been campaigning the last few years that, given the opportunity of power by the grace of the Almighty, I want to broaden access to education in our country, to make it possible for us to harness all the talents of our country. Too many of our young people drop out of the school project, and therefore their talents and opportunities get lost in the system. And why? Largely because they can't afford education. I think that in this generation, we have to take it that fees and the payment of education should be the responsibility of the state. So I've said, and now I have the opportunity to put my words into reality, that senior high school education in our public sector will be free. And from September, they are going to be free. So from September, everyone who gains access to senior high school, in secondary school in Ghana, in the public sector, will no longer have to pay any fees or tuition for their education. That has been provided for in this year's budget, and going forward, we intend to make that the norm in our public finances. I've said it, and I'll repeat it again. I would rather that all the money we make out of oil and our new resources are devoted to educating our population than seeing that money being frittered away by a few public officials in their pockets. So that is the program that is unfolding, and in September, the first batch of secondary school students who will benefit from the policy will be in place. You know, the other major legacy of Kufuor's period was our national health insurance scheme. Perhaps the most ambitious piece of social legislation in Ghana's history, and a landmark piece of legislation on the African continent. Made it possible for everybody, the poorest people in our society, to have access to minimum health care without having to worry about the money in their pocket. The National Health Insurance Scheme came to abolish the cash and carry system. Unfortunately, in the hands of our now predecessors, those who succeeded us in power who have now gone, the scheme became very compromised because of the indebtedness, the failure of the scheme to be able to meet its financial obligations. And it was basically strangling the system, so that the service providers were insisting on going back to cash and carry. They weren't being paid. We're going to have new habits. The corruption, we're going to have to do something about it. We can't continue to bleed because a few people placed in positions of confidence and of trust manage to divert public funds into their own pockets. It has to stop. It has to stop for the future of our country. So a series of measures are being put in place. One, the reform of our import processes and the processes at the ports. We've committed ourselves that by September, transactions at the ports of our country will be paperless, so that we'll take away the opportunity for physical manipulation of figures and of invoices and all of that. It'll be electronic. And that in itself should plug a lot of loopholes. That will be happening by September this year. And then we're going to step up the capacity of the state to investigate and prosecute acts of corruption and financial malfeasance amongst public officials. There's a consensus in our country today that that process should be done devoid of political interest. We don't want attorney generals in Ghana being responsible for the prosecution of corruption. Fair enough. I didn't accept that view before, but it is the consensus. And as leader, whatever, you work with the consensus. So we're in the process of establishing an office of special prosecutor who will be independent of the executive to be able to take on this remit of investigating and prosecuting corruption. I'm extremely expectant and hopeful that this meeting of Parliament, the second meeting of Parliament this year, will see the legislation come into being, and then within 3 to 6 months, the office itself will be set up, and then the process will be then. And then, when people are prosecuted, it's no longer witch hunting. It's not Akufo-Addo who is against his opponents, and therefore it'll be the law taking its own course. And the law in Ghana should take its own course against all of us, irrespective of our status, our politics, our religion, our ethnic. We are all equal before the law, and we must make that happen and work in Ghana. One major problem we have is the supply of energy. Between now and August, they intend to issue an energy bond for some $2.5 billion, roughly of 10 billion cedis, to be able to retire the energy debt. Not only will it retire the debt and free the area up for further investment, but it will also help shore up liquidity of our banks, because many of these debts are debts to the local banks, and which have put their liquidity positions in a great deal of jeopardy. So we'll be killing two birds with one stone. I think that when that process is over, we are going to see a much stronger energy sector in Ghana, and therefore more secure power for our enterprises as well as for our domestic consumption. I'm very happy I have the opportunity to come and talk to you and share some of these thoughts with you tonight. It's going to go well for us. Let's all stick together and make it happen. Thank you. May God bless you all.
Please put your hands together for